So in my life, I know the many mistakes I've made. I've been married for 25 years, and so we could have my wife come in and she could just list things.
Sure.
So I'm in constant need of grace. Like as a human being, I'm going to mess up all the time, and I could get down on myself, which I do, obviously at times too. But I know I have received grace, and because I need the grace, I feel the best value of it is I can put myself in a place where I'm not better than anyone else. I'm not above anyone else. I'm a constant sinner and broken and making mistakes all the time. And so I need to constantly also, and reminded that the people around me also deserve the same grace that I get all the time. So
Welcome to the show, where we explore the who, what, where, how, and why of the extraordinary people who define our north of normal metro. I'm Conrad Fargo, and this is the Fargo Five. Today we have Matt Larson, who is the executive director of Farm in the Dell at the Red River Valley. Hello, Matt.
hello, Conrad. Thanks for having me.
So why don't you go ahead, give us your little elevator speech, if someone were to ask what it is that you do. What do you do?
Well, Farm in the Dell, the Red River Valley, we are a nonprofit. Our mission is transforming disabilities into abilities. So primarily what we are doing is in a garden setting just north of Moorhead, we employ adults with disabilities on a farm in a garden. And by doing that, providing community, vocation, purpose, just something, and a paycheck too, where people, like so many of us, we value our work. The first conversation you have with someone, it's always, well, what do you do? And that's kind of, it gets ingrained into who we are. And so to provide this meaningful work for a population that's like 60% unemployment in the state of Minnesota, it's an awesome thing to be able to provide a place of work. And then the garden is amazing too, because you're growing things and you see the results of your work in the different seasons, and you're providing something really, really cool to the community as well. So it's a pretty great place.
So yeah, disabled persons, now that's a tough one. As far as even describing what that is, a lot of landmines in the language.
Yeah.
But also maybe unclear the boundaries. Can you tell me what are the range of disabilities, or what kinds of people? Like, can you tell me more about?
Oh, yeah. So we employed 30 adults this last growing season. We want to grow that a little bit more as well. For the most part, it's intellectual disabilities. There are some physical disabilities that are going to come along with that as well at times. Sometimes not. So sometimes our adults are coming out with job coaches. Sometimes it's a 1 to 3, like maybe one job coach is supporting 3 of our employees. At other times there's 2 job coaches that are supporting 1 of our employees. And so we kind of garner the experience on the farm and the work that's being done to the individuals. And it's a wide variety.
So farms are pretty seasonal. I mean, or is this something that goes on all year round?
No. So we are seasonal at this point. We'll really start picking up. The first week of May is kind of when we get everybody out there, and we're prepping the fields and putting seeds in the ground and seedlings. And then by the middle of October, most things are out of the field, and we kind of say goodbye again to everybody. So for a lot of the people that are out on the farm, it's a seasonal job for them. We're focusing and looking for opportunities for employment throughout the wintertime. There's been two events that we did this winter where we hired some of our engineers to come in and do some baking and serving. And we have another one in February that we're just in the preliminary stages of doing something where we can get our people together and employ them a little bit and keep them connected.
There's a few other places in town that I think have a similar mission, like CCRI, I think, is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Are you guys closely aligned with that, or how would you differ from them?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great organizations that, like, their goal, their mission is to work really almost 24 hours a day with these adults, whether it's just care in taking care of whatever it is that many of us take for granted, prepping meals and getting up in the morning and everything that you would do. So there's some organizations like CCRI take on all those aspects for some of these adults.
Oh, they don't employ them? I thought... who is it?
There are some, like
I remember
VTC, Vocational Training Center in Fargo.
Okay.
And they're kind of they do a couple different things. So they'll provide housing. They provide job coaching where like a VTC employee will go with some of their individuals to a job site where they'll work. We're the job site. So no one lives at the farm. We're not providing services outside of a place of employment.
So does VTC kind of fuel you? Are they like part of your... Where do you find these disabled adults? How do you come across? And is that how we like to call them, disabled adults, or what's the term? I feel, because reference it a lot.
I think that's okay. I'm not sure. Like there's so many.
Well, if you don't know.
Yeah, I know. And I've looked it up and tried to figure out like what's the best thing here. And what I've learned though, just with that in mind, like working through the summer with these individuals, they're just like us.
Yeah.
You know, there's differences in abilities, of course, but personalities, you know, some are introverted, some are extroverted, some are telling jokes, some are very like love personal touch, others are like don't touch me, you know, just like every one of us. It's really a neat working environment. So as far as some of the organizations, you have to remind me, what was the question?
Oh, well, I mean, and it's more like a river. It's okay to keep going. But what I was trying to understand is, do you go out and how do you find them?
Oh, that's right.
Do they come to you? Do you have a pipeline? So like VTC, and then I don't think it was VTC. There was one, they had people when I worked at Pizza Hut, they had a gentleman who would come in the morning, and he had somebody who would kind of watch him, but he would kind of do the work.
Yeah.
And I know it was the same place who also, there was a crew of them who came through when I worked in an office. The only time I had an office job for 2 years, the only ever time they would come through and clean, and it was the same organization. And they seemed to do similar to you, where they would employ them, but they would go out and more like subcontract them, whereas you have the place and you're running the farm, but your mission is to specifically employ only disabled adults, right? And so do those people who subcontract them, do they bring them to you, or where are you finding these how do they find you?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of organizations. There's Heartland Industries.
Heartland, I think that was it.
Yeah.
That's the one
CLS, Ann Carlson Center, CCRI.
Oh, there's a handful of them.
Yeah, there's several different agencies that part of what they do as the programming that they offer to these adults is we will help you find places of employment. We'll provide job coaching. So we'll send an individual with you to your place of employment to help you with whatever is needed. And so we work with a lot of those organizations. We also just work with parents. Maybe parents don't have their adult son or daughter in a program like that, but they want a place of employment. And so they'll contact the farm and we can work with those individuals as well. Yeah.
So now what I'd like to focus on, because you're the executive director.
Yeah.
I think people hear terms like that, they don't know what it means. What does that mean? What is especially when it's so seasonal.
Right.
What is your day-to-day? Is your job, do you have another job? Is there something else you do since this is seasonal? Or you're probably running year-round on this?
Yeah, so we're a fairly small organization. There are two of us that are full-time year-round. One is my farm manager. He does everything garden, starting kind of full-time hours again in February through the end of October. And then he works part-time doing some planning and training and things like that. But he's a year-round employee. And then there's me as the executive director. So I do operations, I do farming, and talking to donors and having meetings and getting on podcasts and radio programs and things like that, just to spread the mission and talk about who we are and what we do. And so, and like budgeting and planning and anything that a business and a nonprofit would need that kind of falls into my lap as a small organization. So,
and how did you come by that position? How long have you had it?
Yeah, I haven't been full time a full year yet. I was a teacher for 23 years.
Oh.
And so last December, I was hired at Farm in the Dell, but I was still teaching. And so I finished out that second semester I taught, and while I was working part-time at the farm. So I started full-time in the farm in June, so got through my first growing season and harvest. And so this will be kind of my second time through here. And I knew some of the members on the board were connected with some of the other things I was involved with. And when they needed a director, one of them called me and said, "Hey, Matt, you should think about this."
Yeah, what did you teach?
I taught history, math, and Bible at Park Christian School in Moorhead.
Okay, and so that was high school level? Is that,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Mostly high school.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd have some junior high classes as well.
Okay, what's Park Christian? What's...
So Park is a K-12 school in Moorhead, kind of in North Moorhead. It's been around since 1985. First graduating class when they added a high school was 2002.
Oh, okay. And when they've got... So Nick goes... It's one building. All the levels in one building.
Yeah, all levels under one building.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And so while you were doing that, so that ties in with the religiosity, right? You're a very religious guy. And so then you started serving on the board. Do you have a long history of serving on boards? And what's...
No, so I was never on the board. I just knew some of the board members that were involved with Park Christian School and the farm, and knew I grew up on a farm, and I was a part of a camp for a while as well, so kind of running another nonprofit organization, and so this opportunity came up, and that's how they reached out to me. But I've never personally served on a board. Someday, maybe when I'm older and wiser, I could be on a board. So,
well, you're executive director, isn't
Right.
that? So aren't you?
Well, yeah, I'm not technically part of the board. I'm at all the
really?
board meetings, and I run a lot of the meeting, but
Well, I think
technically not on the board.
Okay. Well, and any nonprofit has to have a board, right, by law.
Yeah,
Like that's so. I think a lot of the people who come through and are on the show, they're on nonprofits, but it's always a little bit of a puzzle to kind of unpack and understand how they work, because it seems, I do a few small businesses, so I've got my hands, and I do some consulting for the SBDC. I help people with small businesses, but nonprofits are always kind of a conundrum or not a conundrum, like they're just kind of another animal. So how many different nonprofits have you worked with?
Well, at the school. The school's a nonprofit.
But there you're an employee, right?
Yeah, I was an employee. And then the other nonprofit that I worked for was Camp Joy.
Okay.
So it's a summer camp.
You were also an employee there.
Yeah, also an employee there.
Why
Yeah.
are you so drawn to nonprofit employment?
You know what? I think it's just worked out that way. I don't know that I've sought out nonprofit employment.
Okay, but maybe probably part of your upbringing, right? I mean,
I mean, I grew up in a small farm. Went to church every weekend. Hated church as a kid.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
And what do you mind sharing your denomination like that?
Yeah, I grew up Presbyterian.
And what does that mean?
You know what? That's a great question.
They have the presbytery.
Yeah, they have a presbytery. So it's
Now-
like a church leadership thing.
Now you've
And
exhausted everything I know.
well, when you start asking questions like that, like I taught 12th grade theology, and so I can really jump into
That's the
a lot
show.
of those things.
No, that's the
So,
show. I'd love to hear more about it, because it's clearly it's a part of who you are and what put you in the position you're in, and fuels a lot of your decisions and then the mission that you push forward, right? I mean, So you taught theology in high school.
I did, yeah.
Okay. And but at a Christian school.
Yes.
So what's that? Because that seems, I don't know. Like that would be like almost everybody's begged the question.
Yeah. So, and we would talk about that in class as well. Like the idea of we've all grown up in some way, and we've had parent influence and school influence, and specifically when you're a Park Christian kid, you've been influenced.
And is that a Presbyterian school?
No. So I'm not
Christian.
Presbyterian anymore. That's how I grew up, was Presbyterian.
Okay. Yeah.
And came up to the Fargo area and had a lot of different church experiences, and I'm Baptist now is what I would call myself, pretty firmly Baptist. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And why make this? So I was, child of the streets. I didn't have much of upbringing. I was adopted at like 8 and raised from that time on Catholic. So I did the whole Catholic thing for like 9 years. But then in high school, I did like you do when you're an edgy little teenager, and I rebelled and went down, and it was especially popular, the whole atheism plus Carl Sagan thing.
Yep.
I tooled around with that. And then I married a Japanese woman. And they're not exactly Christian over there, right?
Yep.
Lived there for a while, and so
lived in Japan. That's all.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah. For a couple of years.
What a neat experience.
Yeah, well, yeah. My story is long and weird, but then we raise kids, and not exactly a Christian household, but we talk about it a lot, and always trying to dissect or have an angle to go after it with my kids, and so. To me, like, do we go the Christian route or not is a big enough question, not to just, like, slice between the various sects.
Right.
Like, why drop one to move to the other? Like, what? And then, so is Park Christian a Baptist school then, or?
No. So Park is fairly unique in the Christian school realm because a lot of Christian schools adopt a denomination, or it's the church, one particular church that is supporting the school. So when it started, I think there were, I'm gonna get this wrong, I'm gonna make up a number, but I tell my students I'd always make up numbers sometimes anyway.
Uh-oh.
Phone call.
This is a live show. I did not put my phone on silent. Let's take just a brief break.
Absolutely.
And we can turn our phones on silence because, no, I swear I'm a real professional. Hold on here. And we're back. Do you recognize the intermission music there?
Yeah, it sounded very intermission-y.
Yeah, do you recognize it? It's from something very specific.
No, I guess I can't put a name to it.
It's religious in nature. Oh. Monty Python's Holy Grail.
Oh, there you go. That's original to Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
It sure is.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, that's what I know it from. That's the name of the YouTube video that I'm playing it off of.
Okay.
Monty Python intermission, 10 hours. It goes like that. You a big Monty Python fan?
Oh, I mean, I love that one in particular. That's a great movie.
Yeah, the Holy Grail, right?
Yeah.
Back then, I don't think there were so many denominations, right? Until Martin Luther.
Right, yeah, until the Reformation. Yep.
There was just the one.
Yeah.
That's what Catholic means, universal.
Yep.
See, I paid attention.
Oh, yeah.
I paid attention.
When we say the Apostles' Creed, many of us would still say the Holy Catholic Church. And some have changed it to the Holy Christian Church because they don't like that because they're Reform or Protestant and they don't want to say Catholic in the creed anymore. But, means universal. So
it kind of, you've got wife. Your wife is also Baptist?
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's no, so it's because, back to what we were talking about, it's for me, it's a difficult conundrum. I guess I consider myself, all things considered, and having spent so much time outside of the U.S. and looking at it, from the inside out, culturally, I suppose I'm very Christian. There's a lot of things, I like Christmas a lot. I find it conspicuous how every Christmas episode that every cartoon show has talks nothing about the birth of Christ. It's like it's always like
unless you're watching Charlie Brown.
Right. A few of them do, right? Like Home Alone is also another good Christmas movie because he actually goes into a church.
To the church,
so there's little details like that, but again, like maybe you can just break down a little bit if you don't mind sharing about where you went from Presbyterian to Baptist and why somebody would want,
Yeah, I was thinking I should probably just tell that whole process in my life, I guess. So, grew up Presbyterian, which is, most Christian denominations, the fundamentals of what Christianity believed, no matter what denomination you're a part of, are basically the same. So what makes Presbyterian is some like church leadership stuff. They have the presbytery where you have elders that meet and decide denominational things that are going on.
and then determine whose calling was right.
Right.
That's what I found amazing about it. They're like, well, I got called to do it, and it's like by the person. Oh no, God called me. Well, but who like who decides?
Yeah,
if I say I had a calling, how do you prove me wrong?
Right. That's sometimes a kind of a tough conversation, because there's sometimes where I would question someone's calling.
Yeah.
Or it's just like maybe it's what you had for dinner last night, and grew up Presbyterian. So a few differences. They baptize babies. And that's going to be one of the differences that I'll find myself in the future is believers' baptism, which is kind of going to go down that Baptist road, but I'll get there in a moment.
That's what Baptists do. I mean, it's in the name.
Right.
Okay, so that's what differentiates them so much.
Yeah, so very traditional church. All the songs we sang were from the hymn book from the 18th century. So as a kid, no one, you feel like it's just long and boring. You stand up, sit down, you're singing these hymns that only the lady playing the organ knows, and she sings really loud, and so you all just kind of mumble along with her.
Sounds very familiar. Like I said, I did the Catholic thing.
Oh yeah,
so it was very familiar.
But at the same time, like great Christian home, parents that taught us morals and ethics and things like that. And so I grew up, I think my initial Christian experience is like, I just have to be a good kid for God to accept me, so I'm going to be a good kid, and I'm going to listen to my parents and not get caught at these things, because it's small town also I grew up. So it's like,
which small town did you say already? I'm sorry.
Lemon, South Dakota.
Okay, South Dakota.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right on the North Dakota border. So I've actually been a North Dakota resident all my life.
Oh.
But my address was South Dakota as a kid.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's where our mail came. So.
I see.
So grew up there, didn't ever want to disappoint parents, grandparents, community, and then went off to college and didn't really go to church for a while. And that was more just, I'm in Fargo now, went to NDSU. Where would I go? It never really excited me anyway.
You went to NDSU for teaching?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Not MSU. Isn't MSU the bigger teacher draw?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, when I did I went to NDSU.
Because you were a farmer?
Yeah, I went to NDSU. That's where my dad went. We were North Dakota residents.
Yeah.
South Dakota, North Dakota, there was a price difference there. They didn't have reciprocity. So I ended up going to North Dakota. Had no idea what I wanted to do. And so it was kind of 2 years in. I was just like, well, teaching.
Sure.
And so I just picked a major, and worked out for me. Like, I loved it.
How did you land on teaching? Why do teaching?
I didn't know what else to pick. It's really like
there had to be something that influenced you.
I had some great teachers in high school that were just great people, and I admired them, and I took I was always good at math, and so math teaching is kind of the route I went. But I took some math classes at NDSU, and I was like, no. There's at some point where it doesn't matter how much time you spend on this problem, I'm not going to figure it out. And so I was also doing history classes at the same time. I'm like, I love these. I could spend, I could read and research and write papers as a career. You know, I love doing that. And so ended up with a math minor, history major, and teaching.
But I teaching, thought, I mean, that's
what else are you going to do with math and history? And I didn't have a big perspective of the world or what even was out there. I grew up in a small town on a farm. I didn't want to be a farmer. I knew that. My allergies were way too bad to go back on the farm. So,
Okay. And then, so that somehow led to a change in faith.
Yeah. So coming to school, I ended up going to, there was a non-denominational, it was called The River. I think it was a Campus Crusade, which is now Cru thing that would happen.
Now, are the non-denominational ones, are they the same as Universalists? Because that's different, right?
Yeah, Universalist is actually a denomination.
Right?
Yeah.
And
so non-denominational, it's your own independent congregation.
Are there a lot of those out there?
I think it's becoming more and more common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I myself am interested. We've flirted a lot with the idea of finding a church, because if nothing else, the ritual and the community, is worth it, and the teachings themselves, even if even if we're not totally sold on the supernatural aspects of the religion, are something worth engaging in. I feel like, I kind of think like, is that like, would that be welcome in a non-denominational? Or, because when we looked into Universalists, they almost seemed political minded. And that was the last thing we wanted. We were trying to stay focused on the cultural bedrock stuff, and it felt like there was a bone to pick there. Maybe is that
I'm not familiar with the Universalist Church in Fargo.
Okay.
And I think honestly most churches are like families. Any one particular church is going to have some sort of familiar flavor.
So it's not about the denomination as much as
I think
the congregation.
I think the denomination can add maybe some checks and balances and some core, like here's who we are. Maybe there's some support here and there.
Yeah.
Non-denominational separates you from all of that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Sure.
I think it's good to have people around you that can maybe call you on some stuff or ask you about some things.
Yeah.
So I think a denomination is good to be a part of. It can set some boundaries and get you going in the right direction.
And so then you came across the Baptists that way, or?
Not quite yet.
Yeah.
So some college ministry type stuff, and for the first time, like I would go to very oriented to college students. It's not my Presbyterian church with a bunch of old people that sing just really old songs that I wasn't familiar with. It was a larger gathering, guitars and drums and music. And it's like, I felt something and I'm like, what is this? I feel something here.
Okay. Yeah.
And so just started exploring that a little bit. I met my wife in college. She grew up Catholic through like fourth grade and then ended up joining a non-denominational church that was very different than her upbringing and my upbringing in the church.
Yeah.
And so a lot of experience based and music and feeling and emotion and things like that, which I wasn't very familiar with in church, but it's something like
during the Presbyterian ones, you never felt, because the Catholic masses, it was detached, but it was almost moving in a way for me, all the incense
as
smells
a kid too.
And it was like, oh, here's something divine that I could tap into, and something the lack of familiarity was moving for me. It never did that for you. It just felt too alien.
Yeah, and maybe I'm 30 years removed from it, and so I just felt like it was just a place we went, and we were there all the time because my dad was an elder in the church, and it was just that's just what we did.
And being an elder, that's like being a priest, right?
Well, not quite. I mean, in the Presbyterian,
you give sermons.
He didn't give a sermon. There's a teaching elder, which is the pastor, and then there's a ruling elder, which is like the council or the board,
like
basically
a governor of some kind.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
So it was like 4 or 5 guys in the church that would be elders that would help make decisions for the church.
In a small town.
Small town.
Okay, yeah. Wow. 5.
It's like a board of a nonprofit.
Yeah, okay.
With the pastor being the executive director.
I see. Okay, and so all of this religion, did we finish the story of?
No, it's a long story.
Yeah.
So, attending some of these non-denominational church gatherings with my wife, and feeling stuff. And then actually in that process, ultimately I got hired at Park Christian, and I was a Christian, but still most of my understanding of Christianity was like, be a good person, and God will accept you. And I knew I could explain, like, fundamentally that's not the Christian teaching. The Christian teaching is like, even while you're a sinner, God forgives you and calls you to himself, and then enables you to live a better way.
So what's the distinction? I'm sorry. So I want to slow that down. So what's the distinction there?
Exactly.
One is this like a works versus grace?
Yes. Works versus grace, which is like, my word grace has been really important to me because I think most of my life as a kid, who was doing their best to be a follower of Christ, I was doing that like so that Christ would accept me. Like if I work really hard at this and don't do stupid things and don't be a sinner, then God will accept me in and I'll be a Christian and saved and go to heaven and stuff like that.
Whereas the grace is more like, okay, God accepts me, and now I got to pay that back? Or what's the sense?
So
like,
So the grace,
pay
like
it forward?
as a follower of Christ, he sees me for who I am and all my ugliness and everything else, and takes me to himself, basically. Like he saves me, he redeems me, calls me his own, and then at that point, then it's like, because he saved me and redeemed me and called me his own, here's the path that he would want me to walk. Now, am I going to do it perfectly? No. But when I fail, there's grace and forgiveness in it. But I'm working now to please the one who saved me versus working so that he will save me.
Do Baptists believe in hell? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So with all that grace, how is it that you end up, like what puts you there? Like how does that happen? How do you lose grace?
Well, yeah. So I honestly, I don't think you can lose grace. And we're getting into some some deep theology stuff. We probably would need longer than an hour to talk about this. Yeah. No, that's okay. I love talking about theology.
Me too. Yeah. I was big into it in high school.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I guess I would go down the road, like if God has called you to himself, I have I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but almost a high view of sin, to where I see myself as like, I can't do what is required of me to be in a relationship with God. And so thankfully, I know that God did what was required to be in relationship and then substituted himself into my place. So that's when Christ came on Christmas and lived the perfect life. And then he put himself in my place, took that penalty. So now in my sin, I can be in right relationship with God because Christ was. And Christ took my payment for sin, in essence, and put me in his place. And now I can't lose that.
And so, yeah, we do only have 10 more minutes.
Right, I know.
And I could go after this all day, but I guess, because how I want to tie it through and come towards the end of the show and to understand is how does that, so it's obviously a big part of who you are.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, and you had like an epiphany and it changed how you saw things, but how did it change how you do things? But to me, that's not clear as like, okay, so, because to me, they seem to be on the margins, right? And I don't mean to belittle, which obviously a big thing to you, but it's like, okay, it's not this, it's actually, like the difference between Newtonian physics and Einsteinian physics, it's like, okay, on this scale, yes, it matters, but we're not actually moving at the speed of light. So Newtonian physics is inaccurate, but it's fine, right? So like
it makes sense in the world that we see and exist in.
So like day to day,
yeah.
How does this distinction? It seems like a distinction without a difference as far as like day to day behavior. Like what kind of behaviors, what kind of plans, goals, and actions? How has it changed the way that you've lived your life and made decisions in your life? Like how does that idea of grace change for you day to day? Like,
yeah,
without it, I would do this, but because of it, I do that. Like, how does?
And I don't know if I can answer that perfectly.
Okay,
because I think my entire life I've been living under grace, and so it's hard to like recognize if I wasn't.
Okay,
and in fact, I think a lot of times they can look very similar.
Yeah.
It's not like here's a Matt that's under grace and here's someone else that isn't.
Yeah.
Look how radically different, their lives are. Our lives might look very similar. Someone might be doing greater works than me that isn't walking a Christian path, and I think it's an individual thing, like where I'm at where Christ has called me, like fundamentally, I don't live for my glory. I don't live for my, like what I would want. I mean, in a way I am, but I think fundamentally, like what I want like the one who gave me the grace, my eyes would be fixed on him, and like my hope and my future is what he has said and promised. And so there's things like I can go through the ups and downs of emotion because I know that there's things that are true. In fact, as just Psalm 13 is one of my favorite Psalms. It starts saying, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will my food be my tears?" You know, and it's like, I have felt that, you know, like emotionally, I have felt like I don't feel God all the time. I walk through stuff that is like terrible and so difficult, and you cry, and like, you think like, if I just pray, then my God will answer me and take all this away. Right. But I've seen through scripture, like that's not always the case. You know, the I don't know if David wrote that psalm or what, but how long will you forget me? Like I can emphatically cry that out. And then at the end, that psalm ends by saying, "Yet I will remember the God of my salvation because he's been good to me." And so it's not that circumstances have changed. It's not that now I feel better, and so I'm going to pen the last two lines of this poem. It's through the midst of when I feel abandoned and I feel terrible, and this is the worst hell I could imagine walking through, I know that I have this God who has done this thing for me. He has saved me. He has given me grace. He is walking me through this. And I can hold on to what's true even when it doesn't feel that it's true. I feel like that's what fundamentally things are different, because I have the grace and the hope that I can pin my thoughts to. Does that mean my life looks better than any non-Christian? Absolutely not. You know, I can put my hope somewhere else. And
so you would have these kinds of discussions at Park Christian during the theology classes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's slippery. I'm having a hard time. And I mean, I pride myself on coming in here, sitting down with another person every week and grabbing them and I feel like usually I can get a handle on it. Nonprofits usually are more challenging for me. And so it's not a surprise. There must be something that makes this slippery thing for you here slippery to me is also connected to the nonprofit thing. I'm not sure what it is. I can't get my hands on, because usually I'm able to sum it up in a nice little bow. So you're doing these slippery theology things, and then how is it that you end up becoming the executive director? It started part-time? Who reached out to you in what way? So a board member from Farm and the Dell reached out to me. And how did they know you?
They knew me through Park Christian. Okay. So there are parents at Park. I found a lot of my connections with Park and the farm there's a lot of overlap there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's that whole nonprofit world. Like,
Yeah.
And so they reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested. And I hadn't even thought, I wasn't looking for anything in particular.
Yeah. And why you?
I mean, I think it's just farm background and nonprofit experience outside of school with the camp.
But probably something to do with your outlook.
Yeah.
Which is very much... So that was what I was kind of thinking as you were describing it to me. It's like, well, I can't tell you any specific thing, but it certainly changes your outlook on things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's going to change your disposition, which is going to make you probably nicer in some ways, I guess. I would probably describe it as slippery, because I'm not a nice person.
I would disagree. You've been nice. I've known you for an hour now.
It's an act. Okay. Selfishness, I understand, right? Like raw, hard, materialistic considerations in the real world. Not real. I don't mean that it's almost disparaging, but like the hard tax spreadsheet, plus and minus, hard world. I understand. And I'm usually really good at boiling it down. Nonprofits seem to have something involved in them outside of that. Your story that you've described to me seems to involve that. And gosh, as much as I've done it and looked at it and thought about it and met so many people, it just seems that there might be something about them that just makes them fundamentally good people, and maybe that's what I don't understand. That's a really weird conclusion for me. That's not the conclusion I typically come to ever.
Oh, sure.
Is that like, well, actually, they're just good people. But for any reason, it started out, it was only part-time?
Yeah.
How does it evolve from a part-time to a full-time? Because somebody else was doing it with you, or?
Yeah, so the part-time, it was really, the organization wasn't led by a full-time director for the 4 months while I was still teaching. So I was just finishing out my teaching contract. So I taught January through May, and then when school ended, I started full-time at the farm.
Yeah, and they needed you to take care of those. And your degrees are in history, which is, either it happened or it didn't. That's very, I can understand. And math, I mean, hello, spreadsheets, right? I understand. You understand those things. I understand those things. You and I would have lots of great conversations about those things very specifically. And then you came as an executive director to do those kinds of things, right? It's a lot of work in spreadsheets, I'll bet, right?
Yep. Oh, there sure is. Yep.
Right? So it's not the slippery business here, but and you were only doing it 4 hours, and somehow it expanded into a full-time role. How did that?
Well, it was always going to be full-time.
Oh, okay.
I had to finish my teaching.
Yeah.
And they needed someone at the helm because the former executive director said I'm done at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so I was making decisions and helping, but full-time I was still teaching.
I see.
So it was a really busy 4 months for me.
But you had never been an executive director before.
I was at the camp.
At the camp, but you were an executive director at the camp.
Yeah, that was a part-time, just summer. I was still teaching, and then we lived out at the lake for 3 months.
And they knew that you had done that because they knew you from the camp.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Now what I'd really like to do is dive into what it was like starting the job at the camp and how you ran into the executive position there. How do you get these executive positions?
So it was a Christian camp, and they would have speakers come out in the summertime. So I was a speaker out at that camp for 3 summers
because
prior.
You were a teacher?
Yeah, and the reason I got connected is our band teacher, who was across the hall from me, was married to the director of the camp. And so she just, in knowing me, and I would speak at chapels and taught Bible and things like that, she was like, hey, Matt, you should come out and speak at camp. And so we went out 3 years in a row.
And what were you speaking on?
Oh, all sorts of different things.
Yeah,
I think
things like
theology. And 1 year, I think I took a book of the Bible and just talked through the book of the Bible
for the kids at camp. So they're sitting outside on a log or something, and you're like almost preaching at them.
Yeah, yeah. It was basically a church service.
Yeah,
well, 2 church services a day, and there'd be times where I would do like questions, and so kids would write questions down anonymously and put it in a bucket. Some great questions like suffering, like evil and suffering, and all sorts of different topics these kids would ask, and I love questions and talking about stuff like that.
Yeah. And so how does that, you're giving great sermons, and they say, hey, do you want to run because being an executive director, I mean, it sounds like it's legit. You're handling logistics. It's a lot of spreadsheet work, right?
Yeah.
And so how does I'm giving good sermons end up with, hey, come run our spreadsheets? Like, how do you even get that job offer?
Well, I think it's a little more than running spreadsheets. It's a lot of like people interaction, people stuff. And so, I mean, that's a good question. I think it was a small camp that was going from, they had a full-time director, and I think they got to a point where they thought, I think we need to step back from a full-time person and maybe regain some finances and get our books back up, higher in the black to make our future look a little better. And they thought, well, we should maybe look for a part-time person. And in reality, a teacher kind of fits that perfectly. Because
you already have the part-time.
Yeah, because I mean, I have those 3 months off in the summer. I mean, if you've ever taught, every teacher needs those 3 months to recover.
Why do they think that you would be a good candidate for all that executive work? I mean, because so again, in my world and helping people with small business and stuff, executive work, I mean, that is the work, right? Like that takes somebody. You can't just throw anybody at, you know what I mean? Like anybody can push a broom, but not anybody, or dig a hole, but not anybody can do executive work. Was it just through your sermons, or they knew you personally? Like they offered it to you? You didn't pursue it.
So I did pursue that one and did the interview process, and in reality they took a leap on me.
Yeah.
Part of it was probably my schedule fit.
Yeah.
And then they thought, he seems like a good guy. We'll try it out, and it worked. It was great. It was exhausting. Like those were probably the 6 most exhausting years of my life, going from school to camp, like 6 years in a row.
Yeah.
And through COVID, like
time off.
camp and COVID and all that was really weird to figure out.
Goodness gracious. And so, I mean, so outside of that though, it almost seems like so many of the things you're following and you're pursuing meaning, right? Like obviously with the conversion and how important that is for you to be such a big part of your story, you're pursuing meaning, and opportunities just keep presenting themselves to you.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's been.
It's everything is very almost indirect.
Yeah. And
that maybe that is the nature of the complexity. I don't know, but gosh, you're right. We really could do another hour.
We could. We'll have to have coffee sometime, and you can ask me all those theology questions, and we can hammer some things out.
Well, no, what I'm trying to figure out is how I'm going to land my own executive director position. I'm trying to figure out your moves so I can ape them, but I don't. I think I'd have to pursue meaning, which I don't have the energy for anymore. I'm 40 years old. I don't know. But it sounds like you never gave up.
Right. And I think it provides this core of something I can stand on in all the ups and downs that life are going to give you. There's this fundamental core of running through and who I am and what God has done in my life and things like that. Like that just, like you said, it provides that meaning and that fundamental core of who I am and where I'm going.
It was a great conversation for me. I loved it. I almost feel badly that we didn't get more Farm in the Dell stuff because I know why do you want to come on the show? Not to talk about yourself, but to talk about your big business. And so I feel badly about that. You do have the last thing we do here is to plug. But I would also say if you've got anybody else Farm in the Dell, I'd love to have them on to talk more Farm in the Dell. Well, but I mean, this is the show, and I think is very much a part of your story and knowing who you are. And I'm sure that your search for meaning comes across in the things that you're bringing to Farm in the Dell, the way you're running Farm in the Dell, and I'm sure all kinds of exciting stuff in the future now that it's under your executive leadership. Because I mean, you're the captain of the ship, right? I mean, you're the one who's gonna execute and make everything happen. So I'm excited to hear where things go. Please, if somebody wants to learn more about Farm in the Dell or upcoming events, anything like that, go ahead and plug anything you like.
Yeah, so a couple things. Giving Hearts Days is the biggest fundraiser that we have, just probably most nonprofits in our area. So you can remember us on Giving Hearts Day. One of our revenue streams is we sell our produce through a CSA. And so you can, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. You pre-buy a subscription to a box of vegetables that get delivered to a couple different places in town. And it's about a 12-week subscription.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Yeah. So that's our main source of programming income. And so you can go on our website, which is farminthedellrrv.org. So it's Farm in the Dell and then RRV for Red River Valley .org. And then we got a great website. There's lots of information on there. You can sign up for a CSA. Volunteers are huge. Like we farm 11 acres and it's many times it feels like it's 11 acres of weeds. And so to get people out there, whether it's corporate groups or individuals or families, come on out to the farm. We'd love to have you out there and pull some weeds and plant some stuff and work alongside our individuals. It's a pretty special place. So.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. And of course, I'm Conrad Fargo. You can find me anywhere. You can type in Conrad in Fargo. You go to Google, you go to Amazon.com, you go to iTunes, anywhere. You just type in Conrad Fargo. I'm there. Like, share, and subscribe. Matt, thank you so much for coming and sharing and talking with us today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we're going to get out of here. I usually ask you about your music, but we don't even have time to talk about it. We got to just start listening to it. It's You've Already Won. I got the live version and the official by Shane and Shane. Shane.
Yeah.
By
Shane and Shane.
and Shane. So we're going to listen to that and get out of here, and we will see everyone next week. Goodbye.
Thanks, Conrad.